Welcome to Football Game Plan's Power Rankings here on the Game Plus Network. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Week 13 in the NFL, Week 14 in college football. The FCS playoffs are also kicking off this weekend. But first, we'll start in the NFL, where there's a new team in our top 5 as we go into our NFL Week 13 Power Rankings. The Cincinnati Bengals remain at number 32 on our list. The change this week could potentially happen as they're going back to Andy Dalton, a former longtime starter at the quarterback position. I thought they should have never moved on from Dalton to go with Ryan Finley, so now Dalton is back in the lineup. Expect this offense to look a lot better, much more cohesive with number 14 back under center. At number 31 are the Miami Dolphins. Just when you start to jump on the Dolphins bandwagon, with that 2-game winning streak, they go back to their old ways, dropping the next 2 ball games. Can this team find some level of consistency? If they can, that can definitely move them up the rankings once again. Moving on to teams 26 through 30, and the Arizona Cardinals, coming off of a bye at 3-7-1, are looking to get back on the winning track. You like how Kyler Murray is making steady progress in the passing game. So is Dwayne Haskins, who got his first victory of his young career as the Washington Redskins starter. Did a great job against the Detroit Lions down the stretch when they needed him the most. And speaking of those Lions, going into the Thanksgiving Day matchup, they may be without their reserve quarterback, Jeff Driscoll, so keep an eye on that situation. You look at the New York Giants, 2-9, losers of 7 straight games. This is a football team that has to find a way to protect the football, and more importantly, Daniel Jones has to do that, but he has to get better play from his offensive tackles in order for that to happen. And the Denver Broncos, I thought, played competitively throughout the course of this season despite their 3-8 record. I don't think they're as bad as their record indicates. We'll see how long it will be before we get to see the rookie second round pick, Drew Lock at QB. Moving right along, teams 21 through 25, and you look at the Los Angeles Chargers coming off that bye week with that ugly loss to Kansas City. They have to play much better. The Jacksonville Jaguars offense hasn't been what we expected it to be under Nick Foles the last 2 games since he returned to the lineup. And the Atlanta Falcons took a step back last weekend against Tampa Bay, but they still have a big opportunity in this upcoming weekend against their hated rival, the New Orleans Saints. And speaking of those Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you have to love Jameis Winston, the good and the bad. Maybe not the bad so much, but you like how even if he throws an interception, he continues to fight through that adversity and finds ways to have success. That's why he's such a loved quarterback by Bruce Arians, because of that element of his game, but he has to protect the football a lot better. He's on pace for 32 touchdowns and 29 interceptions. The New York Jets have won 3 straight games, and all 3 games they've scored over 30 points, 34 points to be exact. So this offense is starting to find its rhythm. They're starting to hit its stride, and the defense is starting to get after the quarterback and turn the ball over. Moving on to teams 16 through 20, and there's a lot of questions here on this list, starting with the Los Angeles Rams, who just got beat down by the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. They have a ton of questions that they have to get answered on that football team. So do the Chicago Bears, more so on the offensive side of the football. You still can't trust Mr. Trubisky. That defense is playoff ready. That offense, maybe not so much, especially at the quarterback position. And Carolina has a great defense. I think they have a great running game. Offensively, they have to find a way to be consistent throwing the football. So do the Philadelphia Eagles. There's excuses always around Carson Wentz, but none actually blaming the actual quarterback for his play. So he has to play better in order for this team to play better as a unit. And the Cleveland Browns, I think, are starting to answer a lot of their questions. Their offense is starting to click. They have a 2-headed monster in the backfield with Nick Chubb and also Kareem Hunt. Their wide receivers are starting to get the football deep down the field. Mayfield is starting to protect the football a lot more. And Joe Schobert, right there in your screen, is a guy that's catching multiple interceptions a game. So the Browns maybe have turned around their season and look to be exciting down the stretch. We move over to the top half of the NFL teams, 11 through 15, and the Oakland Raiders, in my opinion, I thought came out flat against the New York Jets. Maybe they overlooked the Jets and were looking ahead to this week's matchup against Kansas City. The Indianapolis Colts lost a tough one to the Houston Texans, but once again, people are starting to question Jacoby Brissett as if T.Y. Hilton didn't drop those 2 crucial passes, which could have been the difference in them winning the game. The Pittsburgh Steelers have made a move at the quarterback position, going to Devlin Duck Hodges as their starter over Mason Rudolph, which I think is a great move because at least we know Hodges isn't afraid to throw the football deep down the field, and that opens up their passing game, which should alleviate a lot of the pressure off of their run game. So we should see a much more productive offense as a result. the Dallas Cowboys have the pieces on paper to be outstanding. I think offensively, you have to put the ball in Dak Prescott's hands and allow him to set up the running game for Ezekiel Elliott. So pass first to set up the run, and on defense, it's all about getting off the field on third down and being able to convert those opportunities to turn the ball over. Moving into the top 10 with teams 6 through 10, the Minnesota Vikings do a great job on both sides of the football. Kirk Cousins is playing his best football of the season, and you have to like where he's headed down the stretch of this year and what that means for the Minnesota Vikings. So are the Houston Texans. They have a huge matchup this week against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, and we know Deshaun Watson is a guy that's a big game quarterback, and this is most definitely a big game. When you look at number 10, Kansas City, coming off of a bye, Andy Reid is outstanding in getting his teams ready to play coming off bye weeks, and they're coming off a big win down there in Mexico City against the Los Angeles Chargers. And speaking of the team in the AFC that's playing some really good football, the Buffalo Bills, they're 8-3. You can only play who's on the schedule. They've beaten the teams that are on the schedule more times than they've lost. This is a huge matchup for them on Thanksgiving, which could be a statement game against the Dallas Cowboys. And we just saw Green Bay take a tough loss to San Francisco on Sunday night. This is a football team that has the pieces to run the football. They have to be more consistent in running the football. And if your offensive line is struggling, go to your quick game and stop trying to throw the football deep down the field. We'll see what adjustments are made this week as they take on the New York Giants. And as we move into the top 5, Baltimore remains number 1 with the bullet. This is an offense that has averaged over 40 points a game in the last 3 games, have beat down some pretty important and big teams in the NFL, and the Houston Texans, and more recently, last weekend, the Los Angeles Rams. And the New Orleans Saints have an opportunity to really distance themselves in that division and have an opportunity to clinch a playoff berth if they're able to win against the Falcons. But when you look at the San Francisco 49ers, they draw the Baltimore Ravens this week, and all attention will be on Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, and what can he draw up to help keep Lamar Jackson contained and not be as explosive as we've seen him throughout the season. So we'll see what the defensive coordinator that everyone loves to talk about can do this weekend against one of the more feared offenses in the NFL. And we'll take a quick commercial break and be back with more Football Game Plan here on the Game Plus Network. What's up, NFL fans? I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and don't forget to check out and purchase your copy of our latest football game plan book, Stiff Arming Football Myths. We have these available in both PDF and paperback form.
Well, the game of football has taught me so many things, man. Now, think about the huddle we have right now, right? I tell people this all the time. There's a reason why they call it a huddle. You know, people have been huddling all their lives, trying to find ways to enhance each other's lives. The great teams do that all the time. The great teams do that. The better the huddle, the better the team. And so it's simple, man, how if you huddle for all the right reasons, we wouldn't have Ferguson. We wouldn't have some of the challenges that we have in our society. But as we all know, there's always a moment when somebody doesn't belong in the huddle. And yet we have to continue to move on. We got to continue to play. So the game of life, man, is always starting with a huddle. And for me, I'm lucky enough to know that, you know, by the graces of God, man, it's been a nice huddle. It's been a nice huddle. And if I just keep making sure that he's in front of me, I'm gonna be all right.
I'm Alex Marinoni, offering you Football Game Plan's best bets for Week 13. Thanksgiving football is upon us, and we start with the first game that has the Chicago Bears heading to Detroit to take on the Lions. Both teams have been struggling as of late, the Lions taking a tough loss in Washington, and Chicago, despite beating the Giants, still struggled to get the offense moving. The Bears started the year as Super Bowl contenders, and are now barely hanging on to keep their playoff hopes alive. The Lions, on the other hand, have played in many close games this year, no matter who the opponent is. I expect the Lions to keep this a game. The big issue would be Jeff Driscoll up against this Bears defense. This matchup might be where the difference in the game lies. The spread is at -1 for the Bears, and I like the defense to will them to win here. Take the Bears to cover this spread. A big Thanksgiving matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys. This game will have huge playoff implications for both teams. The Bills have a rough schedule down the stretch that, believe it or not, have their most winnable game in this game. The Cowboys have lost all 4 of their games against teams with records above 500 this year and will have their hands full with the Bills' defense and their athletic quarterback. The Cowboys have the luxury of the comfortability of playing their home Thanksgiving game and getting to play indoors. The offense had a rough one last week in tough conditions, but I expect them to bounce back. Looking at the spread at -7, I like the Cowboys to cover this one at home. On Thanksgiving night, we have an NFC rematch between the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. A couple of weeks ago, the Falcons surprised the football world and took it to the Saints in a blowout win. The Falcons rattled off another blowout win before dropping a disappointing loss to the Bucs last week. Since the loss, the Saints have been back on fire, winning all their games in impressive fashion. These two teams have always played each other close, no matter how each of their seasons have been going. Seeing the spread set at +7 for the Falcons, I like them to keep it close and cover this spread. Out in Cincinnati, where the Bengals play host to the New York Jets. The Jets have been steamrolling their opponents as of late and have a favorable matchup with a winless Bengals team. The offense has started clicking and the defense looks to have finally come together despite some key injuries. The Bengals are making the move back to Andy Dalton, and with the weapons in Tyler Boyd and Alex Erickson, they can make plays against the inexperienced Jets secondary and sneak across a couple of scores. Despite the struggles from the Bengals this season, they have kept the games close. Seeing the spread set at +4.5, I like the Bengals to cover it here. We head to Indianapolis, where the Colts will take on the Tennessee Titans. A huge AFC South battle for two teams currently tied for second in the division. The Colts have been dealing with a lot of adversity this year with all their injured players, but they still play every game tough. The Titans are one of the hottest teams in the league right now and are operating at a level that no one has expected. Brian Tannehill has rejuvenated this Titans team and has kept the offense on the field, allowing their defense to operate more effectively. This will be a close game that will probably come down to who has the ball last. I'm looking at the over-under in this game as well and see it sitting at 43.5. I expect a low-scoring game here. The best bet here is to take the under. The struggling Philadelphia Eagles head to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The Eagles have been very up and down this season, but see themselves just one game out of the division lead. The Dolphins have come a long way from the first 4 weeks of the season, and although less talented, see themselves as a much more competitive team. The Eagles have been dealing with many injuries, but this is a game that should see them handle business regardless. The Eagles' offense has been inconsistent, but still possess the talent to move the ball up and down the field. On the other side, the defense has played better with the secondary getting healthy again, but they play a fearless Ryan Fitzpatrick offense. Despite the confidence and fearlessness of the Dolphins' offense, I believe the Eagles should handle this game. With the spread set at -8, I like the Eagles to cover it. Tensions will be high as the Cleveland Browns head to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers in a heavily anticipated rematch. We all know about the Garrett Rudolph incident from 2 weeks ago, which has both Garrett and Pouncey missing this game. But the Steelers have bigger problems, as last week they ended up benching Mason Rudolph due to poor play. There hasn't been a quarterback announced yet for the Steelers for their matchup with the Browns, but whether it's Rudolph or Hodges, I don't think it matters against this Browns team. The Browns have played better over the last few weeks and have put together a nice 41-point showing from their offense last week. The defense has been solid all year, and Baker has not turned the ball over for a few weeks now. Seeing the spread set at -1.5 for the Browns, I like them to cover it and even win this game. In Carolina, we have the Panthers hosting the Washington Redskins. Haskins and the Redskins got an exciting win last week against the Lions and look to build momentum after the win. The problem is, they're playing a much better team on the road than the Panthers. The Panthers lost a tough one in New Orleans last week by a last-second field goal and should have all the confidence to be able to beat up on an inferior Washington team. Allen protected the football last week, and McCaffrey continued to impress with his abilities in the running and passing game. I expect Haskins and that offense to struggle heavily against this Panthers defense, and I expect the Panthers in general to come out very up for this game as they still feel the playoffs are in their sights. Looking at the spread at -10 for Carolina, the best bet here would take them to cover. This was Football Game Plan's best bets for Week 13. I'm Alex Marinoni.
Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with featured artist IW and his latest album, Season 2. You can check that out on iTunes as well as doyoumusic.com. Nesby Phipps, Art, Life, Entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Financial Coaching LLC, Investment, Retirement, Security, Stewardship Credit, Financial growth is in your hands. Stewardshipcredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo, photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia.
I love football. I cannot get enough of football. I watch it on every level.
The emotional release. Whether it's an exciting play that gets you all jacked up and juiced, or whether it's the fact that you're able to pour everything you have. Whatever frustration you had that week, you can put into that first kickoff coverage, that first block that you have, whatever it might be.
And I couldn't think of anything better to do to fill that void that you have as a football player than to get into coaching.
You get a chance to release a lot of emotion that you otherwise have no place to release. There's nothing else like that.
Again, the relationships you build and the people you're around and watching the guys compete, not just on the football field, but in life after they get done playing. It's just an amazing game.
Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense.
Troy Anthony here, bringing you the best bets for the NFL Week 13, brought to you by Football Game Plan. In our first matchup, I like the San Francisco 49ers to cover 4 points at the Baltimore Ravens. You can get that at -110. Both of these teams are arguably the best teams in their conference. San Fran just trounced Green Bay. Now, I know Lamar Jackson's balling out this season, but I don't think that he'll do with that defense against that defense what he's been doing all season. In the next matchup, the Green Bay Packers head to the MetLife to take on the New York Giants. Aaron Rodgers just put up a stinker against the 49ers. And against this Giants defense, I think that he's going to go off. I like the Packers here on the money line at -265. Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers are heading to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jameis, yes, he comes with a lot of interceptions, but he also throws for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. That Jacksonville team isn't the same as when Gardner Minshew first took over. I like the Bucs to get it done in this one. I'm taking them at +100 on the money line. In divisional matchup, we have the Los Angeles Rams heading to take on the Arizona Cardinals. I like the Rams here on the money line at -190. Kyler Murray has been balling out this season, but the Rams have a lot of room to make up if they're going to stay in playoff contention. Sticking with in-division rivals, we have Kansas City home against Oakland. I like Kansas City on the money line, -400. They have a lot of offensive firepower, and I just don't think that Oakland will be able to keep up with them. Now that -400 is big on the money line. You might want to parlay that with something else. Sticking in the AFC West, we have the Los Angeles Chargers heading to take on the Denver Broncos. Since Brandon Allen took over for the Denver Broncos, they look like a little bit of a better team. But Phillip Rivers, after throwing multiple interception games, he has a lot to prove. So I'm taking the Chargers here on the money line at -125. Now to our Sunday night matchup. We have the New England Patriots heading to Texas to take on the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson has been balling out this season. So has that Patriots defense. That's going to be an interesting matchup. I don't know if the Texans have enough to keep up with that Patriots defense. So I'm taking the Patriots on the money line at -182. And finally, our Monday night matchup. We have the Minnesota Vikings heading to Quest Field to take on the Seattle Seahawks. I'm taking Minnesota at +130 on the money line here. This is probably the toughest game of the week to choose. You have two good defenses and two offenses that can put up a buttload of points. But I trust that Minnesota Vikings team just a little bit more in this matchup. Troy Anthony here with your NFL Week 13 best bets.
Thank you, Troy. Now we're going to take a look at my top 7 tailbacks in the country right now in college football that you want to keep an eye on for this upcoming weekend. And we'll start in Stillwater, Oklahoma with Chuba Hubbard. The outstanding Canadian prospect is doing a great job for the Cowboys offense, averaging nearly 6.5 yards a carry, and he's a legitimate home run waiting to happen every time he touches the football. Kylin Hill out of Mississippi State, I watched him tear up my Raging Cajuns in the opener in the Superdome, and he has quietly put together a fantastic season in what has been a subpar season for Mississippi State. J.K. Dobbins hit the field running as a true freshman and was the talk of the town in Columbus. Kind of fell back a couple of seasons, but he's a guy right now that's playing his best football and helping spearhead that ground attack for the Buckeyes. So keep an eye on him. He can move up as we move along in the process, but he'll have to fight off Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU, who's a more explosive version of J.K. Dobbins. And when you look at Edwards-Helaire and what he has done to this offense, he has provided the balance, just like Joe Burrow has provided the passing game. So when you look at Edwards-Helaire and how he's playing, he's good as a runner and also as a receiver down the field. Travis Etienne has the best speed of any tailback in the country. He's a legit sprinter when he gets the football in his hands. Any crease, he's going to exploit and take it all the way to the back of the end zone. That's how fast he is. He's an outstanding runner. And one of the more complete runners in the game is Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. I think this guy should be a Heisman finalist. He's been super productive and consistent since he stepped foot on campus out there in Madison, Wisconsin. One of the best running backs we've seen in quite some time. So is DeAndre Swift out of Georgia, who is my number one back in college football. He provides all of the things that you want to see from the tailback position: elusiveness, explosiveness, the guy that can be a threat in the passing game, not just short in the passing game, but deep down the field in the passing game. He's a tremendous player. Best game-breaking running back, in my opinion, in college football. So that's it for this week's episode of Football Game Plan's Power Rankings. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. And keep it locked here on the Game Plus Network all week long, Thursday and Friday, for our Football Game Plan NFL All 32 show and our College Football Tailgate show, both of which air at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Check with your cable provider for channel listings.